A former AEW wrestler is headed to Impact Wrestling exclusively. Plus, we have an update on Kenny Omega's future and a big match planned for WWE SummerSlam. It's coming up right here on The Ango Show. All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to kick things off with Logan Paul because Logan Paul is slated to have a big match for WWE SummerSlam in Detroit, which, by the way, I'll be there. We'll figure something out for the entire community. This is going to be pretty huge. So, if you guys didn't know, WWE had plans for Logan Paul versus John Cena at WrestleMania, which honestly made a lot of sense because this was a really, really big-time matchup between, Logan Paul, who is very big outside of the WWE, and John Cena, who was really big inside the WWE, but then also became very big outside of the WWE. We know Logan Paul talked about this publicly. Now, WrestleVote and Give Me Sport have reported that the match is actually still on the table to happen at some point, including this year's SummerSlam. So remember, WWE changed their mind. They said, we're going to have John Cena versus Theory at WrestleMania. Logan Paul versus John Cena at SummerSlam is the secondary plan. So the idea, I believe, is that John Cena is going to pretty much have this little run from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Then the rumor is John Cena will work WrestleMania 40. There's been some rumblings on the internet that maybe this could be the last year where John Cena works multiple events. Next year's WrestleMania could be his official retirement. There's even reports of John Cena doing Hall of Fame and stuff like that, which I don't want to get into. I think that's way too soon to speculate, but the idea of Austin Theory beating John Cena is actually a really good idea. If I'm WWE, I have Theory beat John Cena, retain the U.S. Championship. Then I would have Logan Paul versus John Cena at SummerSlam. And you know what, man? I would have John Cena beat Logan Paul. I would. Because Logan Paul is not wrestling every single week on TV. Now, if Logan Paul was wrestling every single week on TV, then maybe you would want him to get the win. But if he's not wrestling every single week, if he's just an attraction, his wins and losses really don't mean shit, in my opinion. So, with that being said, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Kenny Omega, because now Kenny Omega is definitely getting people to talk. While speaking on CBC's Front Burner podcast with host Jamie Poisson, Kenny Omega was asked about his future in AEW and beyond, and Omega made it clear he is not sure about his future. He says, I always try to find my own way, or at least try to lean in the direction of where my heart is pulling me, and right now I'm taking one step at a time, and with this Winnipeg show, it feels like, yeah, this feels right, and what's next? I don't know, because nothing has spoken to me. Nothing has told me this is what you need to do. The Spidey sense hasn't been triggered yet. Very interesting comments from Kenny Omega. If he was an AEW lifer, Kenny Omega would be publicly speaking about AEW and saying he's staying with AEW forever, right? Kenny Omega not saying that signifies to me that any option that's on the table is literally on the table. And that doesn't just mean WWE, but that also means New Japan Pro Wrestling, maybe even Impact. Now, before you laugh and type in the comments, oh, Kenny would never go to Impact. Kenny would never go back to New Japan Pro Wrestling. See, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's likely to happen, but the fact that Kenny Omega, an EVP of AEW, is not publicly suggesting that he's going to stay with AEW publicly tells me that everything and anything is on the table. Now, you might be wondering, why does that matter? Well, to be honest with you, he's an EVP, and this could very well be like a contract negotiation tactic, right? Sometimes you don't want people to know your cards. You try to make it look like you might want to go to WWE, you might want to go somewhere else, you might want to do something else. People do that in negotiations to eventually get more money. That doesn't really strike me as Kenny Omega's character, because Kenny Omega has publicly praised WWE talks in the past, but then we saw how that all went down. AEW came around. He was pitched to be EVP and all this stuff. Now, the real question is, what is actually going on with his EVP status? Has Kenny Omega been let go from EVP status? Because I don't see a lot of talk about him being EVP anymore either, which makes things really interesting. If All Out was 100% accurate and that all went down as reported, and then maybe Kenny Omega lost his EVP status, I personally wouldn't stay in AEW because I just feel like that would have been the one incentive to stay. But who knows? I don't want to suggest he's not EVP. It's just something I've noticed that it's not being talked about publicly a lot. Him and the Bucks being EVPs, I don't feel like it's ever referenced anymore. So, very strange situation. Not everybody knows everything that's going down, but Kenny Omega, not publicly talking about staying with AEW, definitely makes me think that he could be considering leaving AEW. And if that's the case, that's fine. Kenny Omega in New Japan is fine. Kenny Omega in Impact is fine. Kenny Omega and WWE is fine. I have no problem wherever Kenny wants to go. I want Kenny to do what's best for Kenny. I want him to be healthy. I want him to be successful. Kenny Omega in WWE, obviously there'd be a lot of matchups I'd want to see. Just like I would love to watch Kenny Omega and Josh Alexander wrestle for an hour, I'd love to watch Kenny Omega go back to New Japan and wrestle over there too. There's a lot of great matchups in wrestling that could be seen, but where it takes place really matters to get the true effect of the impact of that match and the storytelling and all of that. So nonetheless, Kenny Omega, not sure about his future. Obviously, I'll keep you guys updated along the way. Definitely interesting stuff there. But now we got to turn our attention to Kylan King, who has announced exclusively that she is signed with Impact Wrestling. This was based on an interview with Wrestling News Co. Steve Fall. And she announced that she signed an exclusive deal with Impact Wrestling. And during the interview, she talks about why Impact is a good fit for her, which honestly it makes sense. She says that she's been trying to get some work there for a while. Tommy Dreamer and Gail Kim were both big advocates for her. So right around December, I had the opportunity to go work for them, and for the first time I got to work with Taylor Wilde and Giselle Shaw. About a week or two after I had that interaction with them, I got a call saying, hey, we want to offer you something. And I was like, yeah. The moment I got there, the backstage atmosphere was just amazing. And I was like, yeah, everybody is so uplifting and encouraging. They just want the best possible product out there. And that's the best kind of locker room you want to be in. So as soon as I got the phone call, my gut immediately was like, yep, you're going to do this. This is the next step. So here's the thing, guys. This is actually really huge because Kylan King was she was used a lot during AEW's pandemic era. She got a lot of credit for being somebody that not a lot of people knew, but she was starting to get over because of her skill in the ring and being able to have these big matches. However, this just goes to show you, and I just want to say this out there publicly. This is not me hating on AEW. This is me not giving you an opinion on AEW. This is me telling you, historically speaking, there are a lot of talent who have left AEW Dark to go on to another promotion. Kylan King was not signed to AEW full-time. And so what happens is when a wrestler is not signed full-time to AEW, but they're constantly appearing on AEW Dark, they end up going to NXT or Impact Wrestling. Now, a really, really good example of this is actually Tesha Price. If you guys don't remember her, that's now known as Fallon Henley, who is the Women's Tag Team Champion in NXT. By the way, she has been pushed since she's arrived in NXT. She's been a main focal point in NXT, and her tag team partner, Kiana James, is also somebody who used to work on AEW Dark. And that's just the short list. There is so many more. Guys, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more on More Ango, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Very big news. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you next time.